So finally, the 2.0 update for CYBERPUNK is out, and for today I'm going to be testing out the 2.0 update against the 1.63 update. Alright, starting it off with the RTX 3080 at 1080p with Psycho RT, no DLSS and no FSR. We saw the average FPS get increased by 2, minimum FPS got increased by 4, and the maximum FPS got increased by 3, which is a decent bump. Moving on to 1080p lowest settings with Ultra Performance DLSS, the average FPS got increased by 23, which is massive. Minimum FPS got increased by 43, and a maximum FPS got dropped by 5 FPS. At the lowest settings, we're being held back by the CPU and not the GPU, and with the 2.0 update, the game will utilize more CPU cores, and that's why we see an FPS bump. Now in saying that, the CPU peaked at 50% in the 1.63 update, and peaked at 72% in the 2.0 update. Moving on to 1440p at the max settings with Psycho RT, as well as balanced DLSS, we saw the average FPS get increased by 3, minimum FPS got increased by 2, and the max FPS got increased by 3 as well. And now finally at 4K at the max settings with Psycho RT and balanced DLSS, the average FPS was unchanged, minimum FPS got increased by 2, and the max FPS fell by 7, which seems like it's a one-off thing since it wasn't happening in the other presets. Moving on to our next GPU, which is the RTX 3060 Ti. This one's kind of weird, I'm kind of unsure about it, but we're playing the game at 1080p at the max settings with no RT and no DLSS, and the FPS difference is kind of massive. So the average FPS got increased by 29, minimum FPS got increased by 19, and the max FPS got increased by 27. So a massive jump across the board. Now again, I'm kind of unsure about this one. The FPS jump seems kind of high between the two versions, but still, I thought I'd show it to you guys anyway in case you're interested. Moving down to the RTX 2070, we're playing the game at 1080p at the high settings, no RT and no DLSS, but the game does default to FSR. So we're using quality FSR as well for this one. Now for the performance numbers, the average FPS went up by 1, minimum FPS went up by 3, and the max FPS fell by 3 as well. For our final GPU, we're using the RTX 3050 at 1080p at the highest settings again. Now for the performance, the average FPS was unchanged, minimum FPS went up by 1, and max FPS fell by 7. So yeah, that's basically it. The main difference between the two is mainly in the CPU performance. If you were previously held back by your CPU, you should see a decent FPS bump updating to the new version of the game. But for everyone else, you should see a small FPS bump at most. Okay, I think that's about it. I'm going to leave you guys with a full benchmark side-by-side comparisons if you're interested in that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time with the next video. See you guys there.